Good evening and welcome to tonight's City Council meeting for February 10th, 2015. Clerk will call the roll, please.
Williams. Here. Nelson.
Here.
Fernsler.
Here.
Hildebrand.
Here.
Hanson.
Present.
Fowler.
Here.
Sedlacek.
Present.
Markham.
Here.
Let the record show we have a quorum. Next item is the pledge. Please stand. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda. The chair will entertain a motion.
So moved, Alder Markham. Second.
We have a first and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Markham.
Yes.
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Fowler.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Hildebrand.
Yes.
Fernsler.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Motion carried, thank you. Item 4 is the audience portion. This is where we ask people to sign in and be recognized by the chair. This is where you get to do the talking and we get to do the listening. And tonight, the first person that signed up is Marcia?
Martha.
Martha, I'm sorry. I said that wrong. Martha. Martha Roche.
Okay, I just thought I'd come and let you know what's going on at the library, because as some of you know, and if you don't, you will when I'm finished, this year is the 100-year anniversary of the library building. If you go past our old entrance on Main Street, you will see the 1915 etched in the stone. And so we planned a lot of special events for this year in celebration of the 100 years of that building being there. So you'll be seeing a banner over our front window. Yes, Pete, I did sign up for a banner. And it will look like this, and it shows our library paging through history, 100 years in the making. And so some of the things that we are doing this year, we tried to plan something for almost every month, and there's a few things that aren't finalized yet, but for the most part we are done. In January we started a scan project, and what this is going to do is it's taking some of our old photographs, including this one that I found that's of Mrs. Ames standing in front of the opening of the library, which is located, as you can tell, well maybe you can't, where Dear Old Books is now, in 1901. So we'll be scanning pictures like this into the database and into EasyCat. So people who are doing genealogy or that kind of thing, if we know the names, they will be on there and you can trace it and actually see pictures. And then some of this is also going into the Wisconsin Historical Society database. And so we did start that project thanks to a grant that we also received from our library system. And we'll be working on that for quite a while because we have a great big filing cabinet full of all of these historical pictures and articles and booklets and that kind of thing. In February this month, we have a couple of things going on. We are introducing a new service that we have at the library, wireless printing. If you have a laptop and you're in the library, you can now print through our printers. If you have a laptop and you're at home, you can print through our printers and send it to the library, and you have 2 hours to pick it up before it goes away. But we are going to be putting that on Facebook, where we've been doing a lot of our advertising of programs and that kind of thing. So look for that and use it if you need it. And we also have some special displays. This month is Laura Ingalls Wilder's birthday and death. They were only 3 days apart, so we have displays because she was born in Pepin, Wisconsin. So this is history for us, and for those of you that are not familiar with her, she wrote the Little House books. And then we also will be having a display called Decades of Love with wedding pictures from couples from the 1900s all the way to the 2000s. We have pictures from every decade. So that'll be interesting with just our historical stuff tying it in there. March is our big kickoff for our events, and it will be starting with the Kettle Country Quilters, which meet at the library. They will be presenting Quilting Through Time, a quilt show at the library all day on March 21st, and they actually have been collecting quilts, some of which are over 100 years old. The oldest one I've heard of is one from the Civil War era that's going to be on display at the library. So we'll have quilts through the whole month, and then for their quilt show, there'll be more quilts all over the library. So that'll be a really fun event. In April, we're having the antique appraisal guy, Mark Moran, who does Antique Roadshow appraisals. He will be at the library appraising things that people bring to have appraised. And in May, we have the Button Club coming to do a special show as well as a workshop. And these are buttons from the centuries, from old dresses, clothes, that kind of thing, not political buttons, Bill. That's what he thought when I first mentioned it. But we'll be having that show, and in June, the library will be landmarked with the Plymouth Historical Society, so we'll be having a special event for that. And then there's a couple coming up in the summer that we're looking at, some pioneer history of this area from a couple of speakers. We're hoping to have a special band concert. And then in the fall, we have the Big Read, which we're partnering with through a grant with the Mead Public Library. And the whole community will be reading True Grit, and we will be having book discussions. We will have read the book, see the movie. The John Wayne one we'll be showing. And the speaker that's coming to represent the author of True Grit will also be speaking to the English classes at the high school. So we've involved the community with that for a couple months. We have a veterans program in November, and we're having a Christmas party in December, which is actually when the library building was dedicated. December 16th of 1915. So we'll be having a bunch of events. You'll be seeing this in news articles as well as on Facebook for us. So I just thought I'd give you a preview, and we'll have flyers that give all that. So stop in the library and come visit us and help us celebrate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's great information for a 100-year celebration. It sounds great. Next person that signed up tonight is Catherine Delahunt. Welcome to Plymouth Common Council, and tell us what you have for us.
Thank you very much. My name is Catherine Delahunt, and I am a candidate for Circuit Court Judge in Branch 4 in Sheboygan County. I am applying for a job, and you are the people I'm applying to, so I've put together a resume and some questions and answers that people have asked me along the way, so I'll just start those here. That is the long version of those questions and answers, and this is an abbreviated quick note. I thank you very much for having me or allowing me to introduce myself. This is a nonpartisan race, and so on February 17th, it's going to be very important that each of you know something about each of the candidates. So I'd encourage you to go to our websites and to find out about each of us in order to be able to get out and vote. Again, that's February 17th. So what should you be looking for in a judge? I think there are three things that you want to know about: their experience, if they're fair, and do they hold people accountable. And so I'd like to touch on each of those items. A little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, a suburb of Milwaukee. I left there and went to school in Madison and earned a business degree. From there, I went down to Chicago for law school. I was fortunate enough to get a 2-year appointment as a clerk for a judge, which gave me a great deal of experience and exposure to some of the top lawyers and arguments presented, in the country. I was downtown at the Daly Center. From there, I joined the state's attorney's office and was an assistant state's attorney for Cook County, doing municipal defense. So. And then my husband had an opportunity to join Sargento here in Plymouth, and that was about 25 years ago. So we moved from Chicago back home for both of us, actually, to the Wisconsin area. At that point, I joined a law firm in Milwaukee, one of the largest firms at the time, and did, again, insurance defense. So basically, like Automobile Association of America was one of our clients. They're headquartered in Michigan. They hire a Milwaukee firm to handle all of their cases in southeastern Wisconsin, whether it's in federal or state court, and criminal and civil matters, actually, some of them. But with that exposure, I developed a nice base of information about different judicial styles, the different courts, and in gaining that information, when I then started the municipal court for the city of Sheboygan and village of Kohler, I was able to, draw upon all that experience, which was very helpful for me. Experience. So experience, I touched upon the fact that I did start the municipal court for the city of Sheboygan and village of Kohler. That was 8.5 years ago. Prior to that time, those citations were written to the county courts. And they're the exact same citations, except for now the city police, and you have a municipal court, but your city police write the tickets, or the citations to the city court. The county sheriffs will write them to the county court. So in that regard, those cases are exactly the same, whether it's an OWI first offense or sixth offense, the elements are the same. Whether it's, restricted controlled substance, theft, all of those are the same elements. It's just that the penalties in the county court are going to involve some criminal time, jail and whatnot. So that's that end. Then the other side of my practice has been in my private practice. So as a municipal court judge, that's a part-time job. You're allowed to still practice law. And in that capacity, again, I touched upon my experience with the state's attorney's office, and there I gained some experience again that I think is sets me apart from my colleagues, and that is that I was able to represent the county in 12 different appellate cases, and 2 going to the Supreme Court there. And just to give you an idea, you have to do some research, do some writing. You argue these cases before an appellate court and a Supreme Court. And that was a very good experience, and you can kind of see there are lots of parties involved. They're complex cases, and it was very exciting to do that work. Again, from there, I joined 2 different firms in Milwaukee, and am a member of 8 different bar associations, including the Supreme Court of the United States. Fairness. As Mayor Pullman knows from Rotary, I am a Rotarian, and I believe fairness is what should prevail in everything you do. And so in my court, when I see a need for something, I try to make sure that the people there are treated fairly. And I'll give you 2 instances. One is for the students at the high schools. There's a lot of truancy that was going on in Sheboygan. There still is quite a bit. However, we've taken a huge chunk out of that. I started a truancy court 2 years ago, and that has really turned that truancy around. And truancy, it leads to other violations and things going on. Some of these kids had like 35 days of missed school in just a semester. So, it was amazing. And so that I really helped turn around, of course, with the help of the school as well and the employees there. But I think I really made a difference. I know I have in those children's lives and their families' lives and the community, because now they're going to, be graduating, getting better jobs. Second thing that I noticed a need for was the people that are sometimes spending some time at the detention center or even in the jails, and they would have a hard time finding occupations or work once they left or were released. And that reentry into a community is critical for all of us. We need them to be successful when they come back. And so in exploring that with them, what I started doing is offering them community service, so they get to work away at their forfeitures. They're getting $10 credit an hour for every hour that they work, and so they're out of their pods, they're getting work experience, they are also getting something that many of them were unfamiliar with, and that is a job reference. That was critical for them to find employment once they got out. And I, continually have people thank me when they see me out in the community, when I see them employed, for giving them that opportunity and finding a way for them to fit in and to be successful in their lives. Accountability. I truly believe in accountability. I think that's critical, again, in order for our society to work. And by accountability, I can give you an example with the municipal court. When I first started it, 40% of people in the city of Sheboygan were taking care of their forfeitures. 60% were totally ignoring the system, and nobody was doing anything about it. And part of it, I don't know if anybody caught it, but when I started the court, I am a business person, so I started keeping the statistics and realizing what was going on. And so the writ process is basically where you direct the police officers to bring them to the detention center, and they either pay what they owe or they can stay at the detention center. I'm very good about working with anybody who wants a payment plan, so it's not a matter of that they can't pay, it's a matter that they're choosing not to. So what that did is actually, the first year we did it, the city saw increased income for the court at about $400,000. So it was a lot of forfeitures that were just being ignored. And what does that also tell you? If people are ignoring those forfeitures, they're also repeating the behavior because they haven't had a consequence yet. And so that's another critical reason to make sure we hold people accountable. People make mistakes. Nobody wants to be a failure. I totally appreciate that. But you need to kind of take responsibility, right? Say you're sorry, and then move on. Figure a way to get through your society and get back on track. So again, to summarize, I believe I have the experience, I am fair, and I do hold the people accountable. Regarding community involvement, I'm very involved in the community. Rotary and Maywood are just two of the organizations you can see from my resume. I do get involved, and usually when I get involved in something, I put my whole soul and heart into it. So I tend to get into the leadership end. And then regarding endorsements, you should be aware I have over 300 people in the community who have endorsed me, whether they are judges, attorneys, community leaders. But again, you can look at that list. I think most notable would be Mayor Pullman and your police chief here, the police chiefs from, or present or past police chiefs from Sheboygan, Kohler, and Elkhart Lake as well. And the president of our Municipal Judges Association, Steve Kane, has endorsed me, and I believe that is partly because I'm fortunate enough to be in a court that is one of the larger courts for a municipal court in the state, and so I do help respond and to other people's questions and whatnot. So please visit judgedelahunt.org, and you can learn a little bit more about me, and I thank you for taking my application.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming on. Next on the agenda is item 5, resolutions. 5A, resolution number 4, a resolution authorizing the transfer of funds from the City of Plymouth General Fund to TID number 5 and establishing loan provision for TID number 5. I'll ask Administrator Yurgis for a summary, and then we'll entertain a motion.
Yeah, if I might just talk about both resolutions at the same time, is that
Yes,
okay?
I think that'd be appropriate.
And
Thank you.
just so everyone understands, for the most part, these resolutions are an annual update to previous resolutions that the Common Council has already approved. We've approved similar resolutions, I think, for the past three or 4 years, and this is an update for both TID 5 and TID 4. But actually, the sheet I kind of want to reference is this sheet, which the city clerk treasurer's office, thank you to the treasurer's office and Patty for putting this together. But this is the sheet I primarily want to walk through so you guys kind of understand those resolutions. And actually, I just realized I have this underneath 7B, but I'm going to actually just do it now because I think it'll make more sense because they're all tied together. In the top, under where it says 2014, 15, and I should say the green color is last year's numbers. The black is this year's numbers for the year 2015. But starting at the top, in 2014, we had $83.6 million in value in the 3 TIF districts. In green, you can see how that's broken out with the most substantial development in TIF number 4. That's the Walmart TIF. And then for 2015, it actually increased by $10 million. To $93,760,000. The big move in there really is TID number 5. What happened in TID number 5? Remember, we adopted Midwestern Disaster Area bonds to support the Masters Gallery expansion. That's the significant difference between last year and 2015 is that project. So $93.6 7 million. However, when you get to the revenue, you're going to see that our revenue, although we have $10 million more in value, or more than 10% increase, our overall revenue is still down in the TIF districts, and I'll basically explain why here. But 2014, we had about 1.6 million, 1.7 million in TID 4. Then we had 150,000 in TID 5 and 218,000 in TID 6. Well, for 2015, TID 4 has about 1.5 million. So that's a decrease from the previous year. That's TID 4. TID 5 has a major increase because of the Masters Gallery expansion. And TID 6 goes down a little bit. And really, if you look at it, there's not much of a difference in 2014 to 2015 in terms of value. When TID 6 was originally valued, it included a lot of personal property. Personal property tends to depreciate quickly, and as a result, you're going to see the value in TIF 6 go down a little bit. That's the single parcel TIF district, which is the Sargento corporate headquarters. But the big reason that the revenue decreased in TIF 4 has to do with how the levies are calculated. And in one case, the Plymouth School District got more state aids. In return, they had to decrease their levy. And I think it was either 8.3 or 8.9% the school district levy decreased last year. On the flip side, the other thing that hurt the TIF is really the 52% decrease in the technical college levy. And because of those decreases, that impacts the mill rate. And therefore, even though TIF 4 has a little bit more value in 2015 at 70 million versus almost 69 million in 2014, over $100,000 less in revenue TIF number 4 has for 2015. And so values continue to go up, but because of that decrease in those levies and the decrease in the mill rates, the TIF district has overall less revenue. Does everybody understand that piece of this discussion? Any questions about the revenue end? And I should say, just a reminder that, not only did, because of the tax levy decreases and the levy decreases impact this, but it also actually impacted our municipal pilot payment from the utility, which you all received a memo on. But again, if we push down the mill rates, if we cut tax levies and decrease that down, this problem gets worse because of the TIF revenue, again, is based on the taxing jurisdiction's overall levies, and that mill rate translates over to these districts and the increment or new value created in those districts over the years. So on the expense side, the big change really is, again, with TIF 4. Our debt service for TIF 4 was $1.7 million in 2014. In 2015, that increases to $1.8 million. The other costs, for the most part, for TIF 4 remained flat. As part of the 2015 budget, we had a part of the clerk's office wages allocated to the TIF districts for administrative costs. For TIF 4, as part of the 2015 budget, we eliminated that $2,900 payment that was absorbed by our city general fund. The other thing is we reviewed our accounting fees from Paul Corson, and looking at the activity in the TIF districts, new projects, and just the amount of work, we determined that the TIFs at this point, because a lot of the projects have already been done, it's really just maintaining the current books. We're not doing more debt borrowings. We're not really doing a whole lot of projects. We felt that it was appropriate to reallocate some of those fees back to the general fund. And so in 2014, you see $12,600 for TIF 4 and accounting fees. It drops down to $3,600 in 2015. So we slid those costs back to the general fund. But still, the overall expenses are almost 1.9 million in 2015 compared to 1.8 million in 2014. So the difference is $100,000 increase. If you look at the total revenue and the total expenses for TIF 4, you can see that there's a deficit in 2015 of roughly $345,000. We have a fund balance as of December 31st, 2014 for TIF number 4 of $250,000. So by year end, that will have a negative fund balance of $94,000. Which is the first time that TIF 4 in its history has had a negative fund balance. TIF 5, really that there's not really any surprises there. We anticipated that we would have a surplus in TIF 5, and that surplus was going to pay down that advance from the city. And then when TIF 5 pays back some of that advance, that was going to go to the debt service fund. You remember when we put together again the budget, we were looking to put that toward a debt service payment for the landfill loan program, or landfill loan. The overall advance or amount it owes to the general fund is $290,000. That does include, did increase from the previous year, but one of the reasons that did is the roofing cost and the demolition cost to 133 was shown as a TIF expense because it is in the TIF district, and those are eligible TIF expenses underneath the project plan. So December 31st, 2014, it owes the general fund about $290,000. This year, we actually pay $93,000 at this point in time of that off, and right now that is allocated to the debt service fund. TIF 6 pretty much breaks even. The balance there is that $464,923,000. That did decrease again from about $485 down to $464. We were previously, the utilities had advanced $500,000 in funds to TIF 6. Over the last 2 years, that's decreased from $500,000 to $464,000. So that's the status of the TIF districts. You have 2 resolutions before you. Resolution number 4 just acknowledges again that the balance is $290,000. We are charging a 3% interest to that, which is based on the 3 to 5 year program for the state trust fund loan program, and that'll be revenue for the general fund. TIF number 5 is only charging, or TIF number 6 for resolution number 5, that is only charging 1%, and the reason for the difference is it really comes down to cash flow for the TIF districts and what it can afford. And so that is 1%, and TIF 6 will owe the utilities $465,000 yet. So these are the resolutions where we're looking for action tonight on. In terms of TIF 4 and the overall $94,000 deficit by the end of the year, we do have bond payments that are throughout the year, and payments that are made throughout the year. At some point, this will have to come back to the council for formal action as to determine where the deficit for TIF 4 is going to come from, whether that's the city general fund, the utilities, placed on the tax levy. There are different options that the council could consider. Questions on any of this or any of these updated projections?
I guess the only question that I might have, Brian, would be looking out a couple of years when all of our warehousing is completed and assessed for the TIF 4, which is our negative district as well. What will some of those in our near out years do for our cash flow and
Well, you know,
in a combination?
You know, I think it's funny because, 4 or 5 years ago when we were looking at this, we predicted, there's gonna be a deficit in TIF 4, and I've been talking about that the last couple of years. Originally, it was scheduled for 2014, and then we refinanced a bunch of debt, interest rate, and actually, when you looked at previous projection, that moved the deficit from 2014 to 2016. But what happened, which you really can't plan for, is the change in the technical college funding, and so that moved it back from 2016 back to 2015. That change. So definitely there is. The new assessment is it's the value of the property as of January 1. So we're past January 1 for this year, and that's what the December 2015 tax bill payable in 2016 is going to be based on that January 1 value.
Which was
Which,
nothing.
for the most part, those warehouses, they're not built. So for the year, for the calendar year 2016, I expect another $340,000 deficit for the year 2016. By 2017, those warehouse projects should be completed and will be assessed as of January 1, 2016, which then it'll be payable in the December 2016 payable 2017 tax bill. And so there will be an increase in revenue. At this point, though, it's not, I can't, project what value is going to be placed on those buildings, and hopefully there will be a significant increase, and it will offset some of these shortfalls. My gut tells me this isn't going to completely fix the problem, because when we're looking at it now, we're assuming our total expenses are 1.9, and that our debt service is 1.8 million in 2015. Well, if you look at the bond payments, they continue to escalate to the point where I believe it's like $2,165,000. And so we'll have to look at that annually, because as the debt goes from 1.8 to 2,165,000, we can have new development, and the warehouses certainly can help this, but it might not completely take us out of having to put money in TIF 4 because we need to catch up to make it cash flow to this point, but then we'll need more funds to pay those bond proceeds.
Is there any magic answer to, you mentioned the bite that we took because of the LTC change that was significant this year? How long will it take to get that back into the calculation again?
Well, I think it'll be, in terms of the technical college levy increasing,
Right.
or the overall levy
The
increasing?
technical college, because that was
Well,
the
I mean,
bite this year.
Again, I think it was $1.50 or $1.60 per thousand, something like that, and it reduced it in half. I would anticipate quite a long time, because we still have 0% levy limits or net new construction, and the technical college system has a different funding formula than municipalities, but I would expect,
In the near
I wouldn't expect it to get to that point in the near future.
And the near future is still going to impact us as it has in this current calculation.
Now, there is TIF legislation out there, which actually 2015 is shaping up to be a big year for legislation on TIF, which is going to change the rules once again, how TIFs work. But one of those pieces of legislation is a correction that says if, because of the Wisconsin, whatever act changed the technical college levy, if that created a problem with your TIF district, you have the ability to potentially seek approval from the Joint Review Board to extend the life of your TIF district a number of years. I'm not sure the details of that. It might only be 5 years, it might be longer than that, beyond the life. But right now, our TIFs in general go out to 2027, 2029, that period. So, that legislation is out there, and then there are also legislation on labeling your TIF district as a distressed TIF district, which again opens the door for extending the life of your TIF district to recoup those costs.
We basically have a lot of years left, but unforeseen circumstances as we've had certainly point out the impact that it had on us immediately at this time and for the next few years as well, more than likely.
Now, a lot of the projects in TIF number 4, I mean, there were some city projects, but a lot of the projects in TIF 4, were utility projects. And certainly, one option is to, either split that between the city and the utility, or look at taking more from the utility because it funded mostly utility projects. But, realize that the utility business is capital intensive. And if the utility has less cash because of this, that delays other capital investment. So it's not just an easy answer. And again, we're not here to make that decision here tonight, but it's a discussion that the council's going to have to think about a little bit and eventually take action on later this year.
Going forward, it doesn't make it any easier then for,
Yeah, I think if you look in the middle 2000s, if you looked at it, everyone assumed mill rates would slightly increase, and that's what everybody's models were based off of. And then it kind of turned into, well, we're projecting no increase to any mill rates. And now, for the first time in probably 20 years, we actually have negative overall mill rates with all the taxing jurisdictions. You have an overall negative total mill rate, which again impacts revenue for the TIF districts.
good, thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry, Alderman
Let me understand
Fowler.
this. You said the deficits in TID 4 could cause a difference, could raise the tax levy. Is that right?
Well,
Or what comes from the tax levy?
Well, no, the deficit that we have, or the cash, call it the
Shortfall.
cash flow shortfall deficit. Again, we're not here to talk about, it's not an action item on tonight's agenda, but just to clarify, the council will have the option to use city funds, utility funds. It could also, because shortfall debt payments can be placed on the tax levy and increase that as part of the levy. That is an option.
That's pretty sad because our illustrious finance committee gave away $100,000 to a nonprofit for this year that didn't even need the money. Where the hell is the fiscal responsibility of the finance committee and this city council?
Any other comments? Thank you very much for the summary and discussion leading on that. And that did kind of combine 7B as well, and that's a good thing to do that. We will act on Resolution 4 and 5 separately. So at this time, the chair will entertain a motion to approve Resolution number 4 as written, and then we can discuss.
So move, Alder Hanson, approve resolution number 4. Second, Alder Sedlacek.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Clerk will call the roll on Resolution number 4, please.
Fowler,
Yes.
Fernsler,
Yes.
Markham,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Sedlacek,
Yes.
Hildebrand,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Motion carried, thank you. Item 5B, resolution number 5. The chair will entertain a motion to approve resolution number 5 of 2015 as written.
So moved, Alderman Marco.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Clerk will call the roll, please.
Sedlacek,
Yes.
Markham,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Fernsler,
Yes.
Hildebrand,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Fowler.
Yes.
Motion carried, thank you. Item 6 is not needed, no items were removed from the consent agenda. Moving on, item 7, the chair hereby announces a public hearing scheduled by the Office of the Railroad Commissioner regarding the Milwaukee Street Rail Crossing for Wednesday, March 18th at 1:30 PM and again at 6:30 PM in the Fire Department Training Room, which is in a lower level, and you can access that from the south parking lot. Public comment is encouraged. Businesses and citizens that want to find more about that. And just a reminder that the Plan Commission and the City Council did approve unanimously to encourage keeping that railroad crossing open. So that is March 18th, 1:30 and 6:30. Item 7B, we've already had the discussion and the update on that, and I think we'll have continued information. It'll come forward as the year goes on and years go on. Certainly, the TIF districts benefit from development, and that's what we're looking for, encouraging going forward as well. Item 8, Chair entertains a motion to go into closed session pursuant to 19.85 paren 1 paren E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties.